Guess you don't count. That's what my sister said when the seating chart put me outside by the trash cans. The hallway smelled like lilies and bleach. I could hear the DJ inside counting down to the first dance. My mother adjusted her pearls. My father looked away. I tightened my grip on the gift I'd wrapped the night before, smoothed my wine-colored dress, and chose silence. No argument, no tears. I stood up and walked out into the Vermont air. 5 minutes later, the chandeliers went quiet, and a scream cut the room in half. Here's what happened next. The Vermont air was sharp that morning, the kind that smells like pine and money. My sister Lila had chosen the lakeside resort for its European charm, the kind of place where people took photos just to prove they'd been invited. The glass ballroom overlooked the water, strung with orchids and candles, floating in crystal bowls. Every table inside shimmered under the chandeliers. Mine apparently was out by the trash cans. I'd driven up alone 3 hours from Boston, replaying Mom's last text in my head. Please, Ambar, no drama today. It's Lila's day. That was all I ever was to her, an instruction, a warning label. Don't make noise. Don't take space. Don't remind anyone there's another daughter. Growing up, we were the cliché you see in family portraits, the golden child and the quiet one. Lila had ribbons and trophies. I had report cards no one looked at. She'd cry and get rescued. I'd fix things and get ignored. Mom said I was the easy one. Dad said I was independent. Both meant the same thing. Invisible was convenient. The last time I saw them all together was Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I remember the house smelling like burnt pie crust and lemon cleaner. Lila was in Portugal with her new boyfriend, and for once the air felt light. Mom asked me to grab an old photo album from her vanity drawer. Instead, I found her little brown journal, edges soft from years of use. I flipped through it, curious, until I realized every page began the same way: Lila's first day of kindergarten, Lila's favorite meal, Lila's college acceptance. Not a single line about me, not my birthdays, not my name. When I asked why, Mom smiled like it was a silly question. You never needed the attention, honey. You were always fine. That night I learned there are two kinds of forgotten: being lost and being erased. I thought about that journal as I walked toward the ballroom, now heels clicking on marble. Through the glass doors I saw them posing for photos, Mom in champagne silk, Dad straightening his tie, and Lila glowing in white. She looked back, once saw me, and smiled the same way people smile at store clerks they won't remember. The coordinator intercepted me with her clipboard. "You're Ms. Hayes?" she asked. "Yeah." Her polite smile faltered when she found my name. "You're listed for hallway seating." I laughed, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. Hallway seating, next to the trash cans. I followed her hand toward the small folding table by the service doors. From there, I could see the entire ballroom, every sparkle, every laugh, but there was a wall between us, literal and otherwise. I set my gift on the table, a small silver-wrapped box I'd spent hours picking out, and stared through the glass. Inside, Lila was raising her glass for a photo, Mom adjusting her veil. Outside, I sat in the cold draft and told myself the same lie I'd told for years. It's fine. You don't need them. But the truth was pressing against my chest, quiet and solid. Maybe I didn't need them. But that didn't mean they had the right to treat me like I never existed. I tried to disappear into the background like always, but the hallway wasn't quiet. Staff came and went through the service door, wheeling bins of melting ice, laughing under their breath. Every time it swung open, I caught flashes of the ballroom chandeliers glittering. Dresses swaying, my mother's hand on Lila's shoulder like a crown of approval. Then the laughter shifted. I looked up and saw Lila walking toward me, bouquet in one hand, veil trailing behind, like smoke. She stopped just short of the doorway. Her reflection doubled in the glass, two versions of her one adored inside, one cruel outside. "Well," she said, tilting her head, "looks like they finally figured out where you belong." I blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" She smiled, that half smile I'd seen since childhood, the one she used before stealing the spotlight. "Guess you don't count." The words landed so softly I almost missed how sharp they were. "Guess you don't count." Like it was math, like I was a miscalculation. For a second I said nothing. My throat went dry, the kind of dryness that comes from swallowing too much pride. Behind her, the photographer was calling Bride, "We need you back in the shot." She didn't move. She wanted me to react, to cry, to beg, to prove her point. I didn't. I just looked at her, long enough for her smile to twitch. "You know," I said quietly, "there's always been space for both of us. You're the one who keeps shrinking it." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, please, Ambar. Not everything's about you. This is my day. You could at least pretend to be happy for once." I let out a small laugh, the kind that sounds like air escaping from a crack. "You made sure I couldn't even sit in the same room. What exactly am I celebrating?" For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something, fear, maybe. Then she straightened, lifting her chin. "You always twist things. Maybe Mom was right. You make everything difficult, Mom." The name hit harder than I wanted it to. I pictured that brown notebook again, every page filled with Lila's life and none of mine. "I'm not difficult," I said. "You just never like that I see things the way they are." She rolled her eyes. "You sound just like Dad, pathetic and bitter. Face it, Ambar, nobody needs your approval. Not here, not ever." She turned on her heel, leaving a trail of perfume and disdain. I watched her go, her white gown brushing the floor, and felt the familiar burn behind my eyes. But this time, it didn't hurt the same way. It burned cleaner. When the door closed behind her, I picked up the small silver box from the table, the gift I'd chosen the night before, wrapped in quiet patience. I traced the ribbon once, then slipped it into my bag. If they didn't want me inside, fine, but I wasn't leaving empty-handed. Not this time. For a while, I just sat there, fingers pressed against the smooth edge of the box, listening to the muffled beat of music leaking through the ballroom doors. It was supposed to be their first dance. A perfect picture. I imagined Mom wiping tears, Dad clapping awkwardly, Lila basking in the applause. The same scene I'd watched my whole life from the edges. But edges cut. I stood up slowly. My reflection caught in the glass panel, still composed, maybe even graceful if you didn't look too closely. Inside the bag, the silver gift felt heavier than it should. I had wrapped it carefully the night before, tying the ribbon tighter than necessary. It wasn't just a present. It was proof, something that could shatter the image Lila built out of lies. 3 weeks earlier, I'd run into one of her old co-workers in Boston. A harmless lunch turned into a confession. Lila had been bragging for months about marrying Rich, about how easy it was to make Noah trust her. "He's sweet," she'd said, "but naive. A few fake tears and I get the house, the money, the last name." She'd laughed. My coffee went cold. I hadn't planned to use that information until today. Before leaving the hallway, I walked back to the reception table near the ballroom entrance. The wedding planner was distracted, fussing over centerpieces. I slid the small silver box among the other gifts right on top of the pile labeled "To Lila and Noah." My handwriting was neat, deliberate. Inside, on top of a crystal frame, was a folded note and a printout of the messages her coworker had shown me, screenshots and receipts. Not a threat, just the truth. I stepped back, checked my reflection one last time, and straightened my dress. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady calm in a way that felt almost foreign. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The Vermont evening hit me with a rush of cold air. The lake shimmered under the lights, a mirror I didn't need anymore. I could hear the faint echo of clapping behind me, the crowd cheering for a dance I no longer cared to watch. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I reached the parking lot, the crunch of gravel under my heels like punctuation. No dramatic goodbye, no speech, just the quiet closure of a car door. As I started the engine, I looked back once at the glowing windows, the silhouettes moving behind glass, and whispered to myself, "Let the truth find its way." Inside the ballroom, laughter still floated above the music. A saxophonist hit a soft note. Glasses clinked, the crowd pressed closer around the couple on the dance floor. Lila glowed in that heavy white gown, the picture of perfection she'd rehearsed for months. Noah spun her once, twice the camera flashes painting everything gold. From outside through the tall windows, the scene looked like a snow globe, sealed, flawless, unreal. Then the silver box was opened. It happened near the gift table. A cousin had gathered the presents, sorting bows and ribbons for photos. Someone said, "Let's have them open one a spur-of-the-moment show for the guests." Lila turned laughing and tugged the ribbon free. The paper fell away, the lid lifted, and inside lay the crystal frame and beneath it the folded note. Her hand hesitated. "What's this?" Bussa leaned over. The note slid loose and landed face up on the table. His eyes caught the screenshots before she could snatch them. He frowned, scanning the text messages printed in pale blue bubbles. A sentence stuck out. "He's so easy to handle. Cry a little and he buys anything I want." The music didn't stop right away. It just thinned. The violinist stumbled, missing a beat. Lila's fingers shook. This isn't someone's trying to... Noah didn't answer. He just kept reading page after page. Each line was worse than the last. Jokes about getting him to sign the prenup first, moving mom and dad into the guest house once he's settled. The same smirk she'd given me hours ago, now frozen on her face, brittle and wrong. "Who sent this?" she hissed. Her mother-in-law, Victoria, had been watching from across the room. When she heard the name Ambar Hayes whispered by one of the bridesmaids, her expression hardened. She crossed the floor with the slow certainty of someone used to authority. "I think you should read the rest before you blame anyone," she said. "These came to me this morning, forwarded from a stylist you hired. Apparently they were in the wrong thread." Lila's face drained of color. "That's not possible." Noah's voice was low. "It's real, Lila. The dates match." He turned the final page. A photo of her text, "The house will be mine by Christmas." A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Phones came out. The photographer froze mid-shot. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Lila lunged for the papers. "You can't show people that Victoria stepped between them. You showed it yourself, sweetheart." That was when the screaming started, not loud at first, more like air leaving a body too fast. Lila stumbled back, the train of her gown catching under her heel. "No, you don't understand. He's lying. My sister, she did this." Noah's jaw tightened. "Ambar didn't write those messages. She planted them. She's jealous. She's always..." "Stop." The single word cracked through the room like a whip. "You did this. You humiliated her today, and you thought no one would ever see who you really are." Every face had turned toward them now. The DJ lowered the volume. A child's voice asked Mom what's happening. Lila's perfect day was dissolving, and she couldn't hold it together anymore. She spun toward her parents. "Do something." My mother Maggie stood pale and stiff near the head table, her champagne glass trembling. My father looked at the floor, lips pressed tight. For once, neither defended her. "You knew," Noah said quietly, his voice shaking now. "You knew exactly what you were doing." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded document, and set it on the table. "This is an annulment petition. I already signed it." Lila stared at the paper like it was a live wire. Noah, you can't humiliate me like this." "I'm not humiliating you," he said. "You did that yourself." Someone turned off the music entirely. The room fell into a silence so deep it buzzed in people's ears. Then came the sound the guests would remember, crystal shattering as the frame hit the floor. Her voice cracked. "She's behind this, Ambar's behind all of it," Victoria exhaled slowly. "Funny. The only thing your sister did was tell the truth." Outside, I'd stopped by the car engine, idling. The glow from the ballroom windows flickered across the lake. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard the scream. It came sharp and high, echoing across the water, followed by the dull thud of a chair tipping. The sound I'd waited my whole life to hear, not out of cruelty, but closure. Inside, Lila's mascara streaked down her cheeks. "You'll regret this," she shouted, voice breaking. Noah turned away, shoulders heavy. "No, Lila, you will." He walked off the dance floor, followed by Victoria, the crowd parting around them like a tide. Mom reached for Lila's arm. "Sweetheart, maybe we should step outside. Don't touch me," she cried, pulling free. "You all wanted this. You never loved me enough." Her voice dissolved into sobs. Dad spoke quietly for the first time that night. "You should apologize to your sister." The word stunned everyone, even Mom, but Lila only laughed a sound so brittle it didn't reach her eyes. Apologize to her? She's not even family. Dad shook his head slowly. "That's where you're wrong." He left it at that, turning away, shoulders sagging as he followed the crowd toward the exit. By the time the lights dimmed and the staff began sweeping broken glass from the floor, Lila sat alone under the chandelier. Her dress, once dazzling, now looked heavy, wrinkled. The bouquet had fallen beside her chair. The same hands that had pushed me away now clutched air, desperate for something to hold. She never saw me. I was already gone. Through the fogged car window, I watched as guests hurried out into the parking lot, whispers trailing behind them. "It's all over social media already. Did you see his face? That poor girl." "No, the other one, the sister." I didn't feel triumph, just quiet. I rested my hand on the steering wheel and thought about the hallway, the smell of lilies and bleach, the folding chair that squeaked when I sat. How it all started with a seat by the trash cans. How it ended with the truth laid bare in front of everyone who had ever looked through me. Justice didn't always roar. Sometimes it whispered, "Now they see you." The scream faded, swallowed by the night. The lake went still, again glassy and calm. I turned the key, headlights washing over gravel, and drove away from the sound of my sister's perfect world collapsing behind me. By the time I reached Boston, the sky was beginning to gray. The highway signs blurred past the hum of the tires, steady and low like white noise after years of shouting I'd learned to ignore. My phone buzzed nonstop in the cup holder, 16 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't check any of them. The quiet was worth more than explanations. When I stepped into my apartment, it smelled faintly of coffee and rain. The city outside was waking up, headlights flashing across my window. I hung my dress on the back of a chair and stared at it, the deep wine color still flawless, untouched by the night. It looked like armor I hadn't known I was wearing. A new message appeared. "Please answer, Ambar. We didn't know." That was Mom. She always said that when things finally went wrong, we didn't know. But she had known all along. Every time she'd told me to stay quiet, every time she'd laughed at Lila's jokes, every time she'd said, "You're fine." I put the phone face down on the counter and opened my laptop instead. A map of Maine blinked back at me, dotted with tiny coastal towns. I picked one somewhere I'd never been and clicked book. A week by the water sounded like peace. Before leaving, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city air smelled cleaner than it had in years. Across the river, the morning sun cut the skyline into gold and shadow. They could keep their apologies, their explanations, their versions of the truth. I had mine now. For the first time in my life, silence didn't mean being unseen. It meant being free. At my sister's wedding, I was seated by the trash cans. This morning, I'm sitting by the river. Same silence, different meaning. Back then, it was humiliation. Now it's peace. Sometimes the loudest revenge isn't a scream. It's the sound of your own footsteps leaving the room. They thought I'd always stay, waiting for their approval. But I don't wait anymore. I don't beg for space at someone else's table. I build my own. If you've ever been pushed aside by the people who were supposed to love you, know this: walking away isn't weakness. It's the beginning of freedom. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from your own family? Share your story below and stay for the next one.